Are you looking for an experience that will grow your teenagers' faith, increase their leadership skills, and teach them the discernment to engage with the world all around them, all while taking them on the adventure of a lifetime? I mean, who isn't looking for that? If your teenager loves fun, adventure, and wants to grow in their faith and leadership this summer, then send them to Excel's Summer Leadership Camp. Excel's Summer Leadership Camp is a 12-day experience for passionate young leaders looking to discover God's truth, to discern wisely, and live wholeheartedly. Your teenager will embark on a transformative journey in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where they'll build lasting friendships in the context of community, embark on thrilling adventures like camping, rock climbing, whitewater rafting, and they will receive expert training and certifications in categories like CPR and wilderness first aid. Each aspect of the camp is woven together to help them learn to discover truth, to discern wisely, and take godly action in the context of real-life situations. To learn more or begin an application, go to theexcelcamp.org. That's theexcelcamp.org. Hurry, because summer is just around the corner.
Love, exciting and new.
Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever.
It's a love.
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships of Bermudan and British Registry.
In a sense, honestly, running has saved me as a nurse, I think. You know, I'm almost 2 years into this. People start to burn out right around the spot where I'm in. And the ER is not for the faint of heart. It's one of the more crazy, if not the craziest specialty that you can go into. And running is just honestly the utmost form of self-love for me. It's something that gives me an identity outside of being a nurse. My worst day as a nurse was when we lost a child. It was a year ago. And it still comes back sometimes. I will be running and like images of that day will come into my head, and it always is like a form of release. It just helps me process things in a way that I never realized.
Megan Maynes, welcome to 80/20. What's up?
I'm so excited. Nothing is up. Nothing is up at this time. I just ate some lunch. And
Yum. What was for lunch?
I had chicken and then like this Mediterranean pasta salad that I made yesterday.
Oh, yum.
The chicken's like pretty bad. It needed like ranch.
Oh.
To be,
was it like rotisserie or did you cook it?
No, we're talking like I took some chicken breast tenderloins and I put them in the oven with no oil, no salt, no pepper.
Oh,
and I was
Megan.
just like,
that's a felony.
We're gonna make it work. And then yesterday, like Alex came home and he was like, "These chicken." I was like, "The chicken wasn't for the taste; it was for the muscles." Okay, like just like, it was for survival.
For function.
Oh, literally.
That's disgusting.
It was gross.
That sounds disgusting. Well, I went to Naval Bagels after my workout, and I have this coffee. Have you had their cold brew?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like electric. Like I'm about to be seeing sound. So as this interview goes on, if I get a little more wound up, that's why. For those of you listening who don't know Megan, she is one of my best friends, and she's currently living in Florida, so we're apart. So that's why this is virtual. But I'm super pumped to have her on the pod. So Megan, go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about you.
Oh my gosh, it's like an interview. This is my dad used to tell me, like, always know the question, tell us about yourself. Anyway, so I'm Megan. Lily's one of my best friends, and it's been so hard being apart. But I am from Philadelphia area, South Jersey. I am an emergency room trauma nurse, and I've been a nurse for about 2 years. I'm also a run coach. I started running in nursing school and just kind of never stopped. And so currently my day-to-day is nursing and running and eating and hanging out with my dog and my fiance. Repeat, rinse and repeat. And then other than that, I'm also the oldest of 8 kids, which I always share when I talk about myself because it's like so ingrained as like a part of me. It like totally explains like why I am the way that I am. And then I was a college field hockey athlete for 4 years. I played D1 field hockey at Georgetown. And I was a goalie, which is a kind of a fun fact too, because people are always when they look at me, they're always, the first question is, "You are a goalie? Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm positive. I'm pretty sure that that's where I was."
Why do you think people were so like, why do they question it? Because the like goalie stereotypes, do you think?
Yeah, honestly, I do. Yeah, I was a pretty athletic kid. Goalkeeping for me, I loved it, but it was also a means to an end. I saw it as a niche where pretty early on, I was like a psycho when I was a kid, but I knew I wanted to go to Georgetown, and I knew that my family, being the oldest of eight, we didn't have a ton of extra money for us to be playing like uh club sports or like play on those recruiting teams. And so like super early on in my childhood, I was like, I'm going to become a goalkeeper. Hope Solo was like my idol, and I had read all of her biographies, and she grew up super poor, and goalkeeping became like her way in to college and then professional soccer. And so I decided like when I was 10 that I was going to just be a goalie and make myself stand out, and that's how I was going to get to college. But I think the stereotype is always like, oh, we're gonna throw like the unathletic girl in goal, which I hate that stereotype because I think it's totally not true. I think that the goalkeeper should be the most athletic person on the field or the fittest person on the field a lot of the times. In field hockey, I wore these huge pads, and when I would take them off, when I wore them, I looked like the Michelin Man. Like I had a ton of pads on, like I could barely walk. I was super clumsy, if you can envision that. And then I'd take them off and I'd just be like this like tiny little girl, and all the parents are like, "Oh my gosh, I thought you were like just like this larger than life like athlete, and you just like are like this like little miniature person." I was like, "Well, yeah, like I think it's important to be really athletic to be in the goal."
Okay, so you talk about sports being kind of like a means to an end. Did you always want to go to Georgetown, and did you always want to pursue nursing?
I always wanted to go to Georgetown. Yes, I since I was 10 years old, I have these cringe emails that I wrote. At the time, I didn't even play field hockey. I wrote an email to the Georgetown soccer coach and lacrosse coach at 10 years old and was like, "Hi, I'm Megan, and I'm really good at soccer and lacrosse. And just keep an eye out for me one day. Like, I'm coming for you
Watch
guys."
out, I'm coming. Wait, did you ever get a response from them?
No,
No?
they never
Dang
answered. But
it.
I think it's because you're not actually technically allowed. So they probably read it
Yeah,
and like,
that's
"Oh,
true.
this is cute. This is
Yeah.
cute." But they
Like I
also like
wish we could send her a
couldn't.
t-shirt or something.
I know. But
Yeah.
and then nursing, no, that's its own story. But I was do you want me to tell that whole story?
Yeah, if you want
The
to, if
whole,
you're open to it.
yeah. So I was actually going to go to business school. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Had kind of thought about like in my childhood becoming a doctor, but I want to be a mom. That's like a huge part of, I love kids. And so I knew the end goal was to be a mother. And I just thought like, well, med school, like by the time I'm done, like I might be in the spot where I want to have kids. And like the dynamic didn't seem worth it to me, but nursing had never crossed my mind. And then when I was a senior in high school, I was having problems with my hamstring. Um, and I was about 4 months out from going to Georgetown for preseason for field hockey.
You were a recruited athlete for Georgetown for field hockey, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
cool.
So I was like committed, had signed the contract, was in my spring semester of senior year in high school, and couldn't really get the hamstring problems under control. And so my doctor at home said, "All right, let's go get some imaging done. Let's get an MRI." So I went in for the MRI and it was fine. And I remember I left and I went straight to the gym afterwards. I was in Planet Fitness. I was on the Stairmaster, and I was 18 at the time. So that's when they have to call you and not your mom. And like, at 18, I'm still a kid, but they called me, and it was the radiology office. And they told me on the phone, "You have some problems with your hamstring, but you have a huge mass in your pelvis and a couple other little masses that we can see. You need to go figure out, you need to go see OBGYN and right away." Essentially, that's all they told me. They hung up, and I like completely lost it. Called my mom, like, "Mom, Dad, come get me." I remember my dad saying, "Stay right where you are." And they came and they picked me up. And not even 2 hours later, we had appointments to see OB, I think OB oncology, I don't even remember. I like blacked out so much of that. But we had surgery on the schedule by the end of the day. So I went in.
Wow. How long was the period of time between like when you found out versus like when you got surgery? Was it like a super quick turnaround?
It was 2.5 weeks,
Okay.
which felt like forever,
Yeah.
was also kind of scary because there was like, there wasn't an extreme concern that I had like metastatic cancer, but with my age and how big the mass was and the fact that there was a couple other masses on the scans, like essentially the doctor was like, "Well, we have a couple concerns right now. One, you could have cancer because any tumor in your body is a cancer. It's just a matter of whether it's, spreading or not. Two, you're 18 and this thing is essentially right on your ovary or engulfing your ovary. We're not sure. We need to get it out, because we need to see where we're going to be at. You don't want to be in a spot at 18 where you have a hysterectomy. You're never going to be able to have kids, and then there's all the hormone changes that you'd be going through. So I could barely conceptualize this at the time. And then the third thing was they knew that I was about to leave for college, and so I think they kind of squeezed me in as soon as they could. So it was 2.5 weeks. Um, Went in. It was supposed to be a scope surgery where they just stick the probes in. And I guess about an hour in, my mom described this to me. I was obviously on the table. They called my mom and my dad from the OR. And my mom's like, she says to me, like, she started crying because she thought I was like coding. I'm like, Mom, they wouldn't have been calling you if I was like having those problems. They called her because the mass was actually a lot bigger than they thought it was, even on the scans. It was a 19 centimeter mass, so like the size of a softball. And so they called my parents and they said, okay, we're going to try to do this with the scopes. It's not going to work. If you want us to do this successfully, you're going to have to open her completely up. So, like a full C-section scar, hip to hip. My parents obviously were like, yep, do whatever you got to do. So I woke up and looked down and I'm like, oh my goodness, like there's a huge scar on my belly. Like, what's going on? And I was like all drugged up at the time. So I woke up angry. Like, I'm a pretty feisty individual. And I apparently I don't remember this. I wish it had been on film, but I apparently started like ripping the oxygen out of my nose and screaming
No, no
to
way.
anyone who would listen, like, you guys just cut me open like a Thanksgiving turkey. And all the nurses were like, oh my gosh. Um, oh my goodness. And that was that. Surgery went great. They got everything out. They saved, I joke that I have 1.5 ovaries. They saved almost everything. It couldn't have gone better. Um, but still, waking up the next day, I was super down. I mean, this turned into like you leave the hospital that day because you just have a couple little scars to like, I was in the hospital for 4 days. I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. I couldn't shower by myself. Could barely get out of bed. Was now thinking like, there is no way I'm going to be able to show up and play field hockey. Division 1 preseason as a freshman, like that was my dream. It felt like my world was crashing, even though there are people who, you know, are 10,000 times sicker than me. Like at that moment, like I felt like my whole world was just done because I still at this point, we didn't know if I had cancer. We didn't know if I was going to be able to have kids. Like it was just a mess. And it was my nurses that completely saw exactly, I think, what I was going through. And they showed me more empathy than I had ever experienced in my entire life. And not necessarily empathy in the sense of like, oh, it's okay. Like they didn't baby me. I had a nurse, her name was Alicia. And I remember her coming in on like day 2 or 3. And she walked in and she was like, okay, you have to get up. You have to get out of bed. We have to walk our laps around. Let's go. And gave me a little bit of tough love, which I respond to. And I think she could see that. And I had another nurse who made me this pillow. She called it a hug me pillow. It was like this plush thing that I would hold to my stomach every time I had to cough or sneeze or laugh because it hurt really badly to do any of those things. And they would make them for the mothers who had just had C-sections. So they made one for me. It was super cute. And I brought that thing home with me. I used it for like my whole recovery. Um, and so I left the hospital, and not even a week later, I said to my dad, I don't know what we have to do, but I need to get into a nursing program. I need to be a nurse. Um, that's what I want to do with my life. Didn't give any other thought into it, to be honest with you. Part of me was like, I saw the empathy and I wanted to be that person for someone else, but I didn't think about how difficult nursing school was. I was like, oh, I'll just do it. It'll just be fine. And then I got to nursing school. I was like, wow, this is really hard. Like, this is really difficult. Um,
It's almost like
but
being naive was best in that moment.
yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, we called the office of nursing at Georgetown, and I think someone had actually dropped out. Like they had gotten in and then dropped out, and so they had one spot. And
Wow.
I told them what had happened to me, and they were like, "Okay, sounds good. We'll let you in." And they gave me that spot, and then I never looked back. Like that was just it was that day I made the decision. So it came really late to me, to be honest, which I think sometimes nursing does, because I think a lot of people, I think some people do it for the practicality, the lifestyle, but I think a lot of people do have a moment where a nurse changes either their life or someone that they love's life, and then they decide that that's what they want to do.
Hearing you tell that story, because I remember when you told me that for the first time, and I was like, dang, this girl is like, she's no joke. And hearing that again, like, no, I mean, but you're actually all jokes. Like, we're pretty serious, but
Literally,
you're all
I was
jokes.
like, "Oh,
Um, but hearing it again for the second time,
that's
I don't know if you saw me, I like was tearing up a little bit just because of how we met when you were post grad. You hadn't even taken your boards yet, I don't think. And seeing you
yeah,
go through multiple nursing jobs to where you are now, and just even like hopping on the phone and hearing about your day, like seeing that kind of journey from then until now is really cool. I just love you so much. And that's just so inspiring. You're
reminds me of
amazing,
you.
Megan.
So are you. I don't know. I'll be sappy for a second. When I first met, it wasn't even I hadn't even met you yet, but I had the same thought. I was like, I should probably figure out a way to befriend this girl, but I don't know how I'm gonna do it. Like I was scheming because you were in the we waitress at Puzzers together for anyone who
Yeah.
doesn't know that. And you were in the booth and you were talking to like it was like the girl squad, and I was on like
Mhm.
day 2 or 3, had no clue what was going on. And I just remember hearing you talk about the podcast, but you called it the pod, and I was like,
Oh, did I?
she's she's kind of she must be like pretty awesome. Like I don't know. And then I asked you like what podcast, and you said 80/20, and I went home that night and was thinking to myself, I feel like I've listened to that before. So I went in my Spotify, and I had listened. It
Really?
wasn't like a podcast I listened to religiously every week, but I looked, I was like, I've
Oh.
listened to 4 or 5 episodes. So then I realized,
No, I
wow,
never
and
knew
I put
that.
two and two. Yeah, I had
You were
listened
a
to,
fan. I'm kidding.
yeah, I was. I was a fan. So I was fangirling, and I didn't even know I was fangirling. I had no idea. I think
Oh,
I had listened to like 4 or 5 episodes. I remember one of them was you did one with like some Soul Cycle person, Madison.
yes. Yeah.
Maybe
Madison
that
Chacona. Yeah.
one. I remember that had stuck out to me because I love her. I now follow her, and I think she's awesome. She just had a baby, which like,
Yes. Yeah.
but yeah,
She's
I had
so
listened to
cool.
that one, a couple other ones before, and then I feel like we were hanging out like 2 weeks later,
Yeah, I
maybe not
feel like
even.
we just kind of became instant friends. And I think for people who
Yeah,
don't work in the restaurant industry, it you might not understand, but like there's so much downtime, and
yeah,
you get to know the people that you work with pretty well. And you and I kind of just hit it off. And then we had that dinner
yeah.
at my house, and that was interesting.
Yes,
And then I
so
feel like we just
fun.
so fun. We just became really good friends after that.
Yeah.
And
Restaurant
le-
downtime is the best kind of downtime too, because you're not supposed to be on your phone.
mhm,
And so I think it forces like a genuine connection with the people around
yeah,
you, because you still have to
yeah,
be like looking for your section, kind of seeing what's going on. And, people go on their phone, but no one wants to be sitting and scrolling while they're at work. Like you're not being paid to scroll on your phone.
yeah,
And that's something that I feel like you don't get a lot of time. no matter where you are now, you're sitting in the waiting room for a doctor's appointment or waiting for your Uber to get there, people just look at their screens. But in the restaurant, we're all sitting in a booth and everyone was just talking and like kind of like shooting jokes back and forth. It's so fun.
It's so
And
fun. That was like
I miss it.
the best summer. Truly the best
Yeah,
summer. And I think like
it
something that
was.
it was so fun. We had so much fun. But I think something that really stuck out to me during a lot of that downtime was like you always ran before work. And a lot of people would
Mhm.
ask you like, "Oh, how many miles did you go today? How do you run before work?" You'd be like, "Oh, I ran 10 miles this morning." And people are like, "Wait, you ran 10 miles before you got here?" And people would just be like so mind blown at like how much you run. And so I want to shift the combo a little bit to running and kind of tie that into
Yeah,
nursing school because I know for you like those are two huge pieces of your life, and they're deeply
yeah,
intertwined. And so I would love to talk about maybe your transition from field hockey to running.
yeah. Honestly, it happened almost by accident. I think for a lot of people, when COVID hit, was just a time where you had unlimited free time. COVID happened. I was home with my family, and to be honest, there was 10 of us and two dogs in a house with one shower. So when I would leave to run, it was the only time that I would say I am leaving for an hour. I'm going for a run. I'll be back because I needed that time to get out of my house and I had no idea what I was doing. I had no goals. All I knew was that there was nobody to play field hockey with. We had no clue when the world was going to open back up. And so I just kind of set these arbitrary, you know, goals for myself every day. And I pretty much started running and never stopped. And I realized, I was the kid in when I was younger. I didn't like to run, but I always admired the runners. Like I kind of thought, oh, it can't be me. I had that mindset of I just don't think I'll ever be a runner. Like I just don't think I was born to be a runner. I don't know. But I always admired the girls who could go out and when we would do the mile, the 5K time trial for soccer, the girls who could run it really fast and not even look like they were gassed at the end. I always looked up to those girls.
I totally agree with that. Like growing up, I was not into running. I played lacrosse and running was hard for me. Do you think that it's
Yeah.
something that is like taught or like there's some sort of like mindset from the parents? Like why do
I
you
think
think
there's a lot of factors. I think lead by example is always a great one. Monkey see, monkey do.
yeah.
Um, you know, Alex, my fiance, his mom is one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life. She started running later in life and ended up being like a world class. She's now, I think she has the fastest mile in America for women in her age group. She's
Let's
incredible.
go.
And
That's amazing.
Alex, it is amazing. And Alex grew up watching. My mom is awesome. She just won that 5K and beat all the guys. She just raced that mile and beat everybody. He grew up and he saw it. And so I think one way it can happen is by example. I do think genetics play a role in your like natural intrinsic running ability.
Yeah.
I'm not a naturally fast girl. I have to work really hard to be where I'm at right now. It's taken me a long time to build to where I'm at. I think that it's okay to acknowledge that. I think when you play field sports when you're younger, that gives you like a pretty awesome aerobic ability when you're on the soccer field or the lacrosse field. A lot of those people can transition really well into being runners later in life because they have an aerobic capacity they didn't even realize that they had from all that running on the field. I think there's a lot of things that can influence it. It's just and some kids just realize in middle school when they do the time mile, wow, I liked that challenge. Some people like it right from the get go. I think it just depends. I think running culture is huge now too for getting people
Mhm.
into it later in life. Run clubs are everywhere. Marathon training is super hyped up right now and I love it. I love watching it happen in different cities. You guys started Soul Run Club, which like
Mhm.
blew up, I think, beyond even where you thought it was going to
1000%.
get to.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how cool is that to
So
see?
cool. I think it's a testament too to like you don't have to start something as a kid and be good at it. Like you can learn things in your 20s, you can learn things in your 30s, you can learn things in your 40s, and it doesn't have to be something that you
Yeah,
started as a kid. So I think that's kind of cool.
Exactly. And you find mentors along the way too. I think, for me, obviously I started running in 2019. I ran a couple races on my own. Like I ran a half and a 10 miler, and I trained hard for them, but I didn't know, no one was coaching me. I was doing it all on my own. I was doing all my speed workouts on my own. And then I started dating Alex, who still, actually, it was really cute. When I met him, remember we'd gone on a few dates and I had already started my running thing. And he knew I was not a runner per se, like in college. And I remember him saying to me one time, like, like you you don't have to love running. Like I'm not with you
Aw.
because you're like because you're running, blah blah blah. And I remember thinking like that's so cute, but also like I was like, dude, I'm running for reasons completely separate of you. And so anyway, yeah, but I started dating Alex, and so running kind of became, I guess, a little bit more um, of a mainstream part of my life, just because, or at least the track and field side of things, because I was
Yeah.
watching him and learning. And then,
Those of you who don't know, Alex ran track and field for Navy and cross country too, right?
yeah,
Is that the same team?
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So he was a
yeah, he ran both.
D1 runner, which is super
Yeah,
cool.
he's the fast one in the relationship. um,
He's
but
also a dude. He's also a dude. I feel like
he is,
they can go for like one 5K and be like, I'm a runner, and they're so fast.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, I look up to him a lot because he exposed me to the side of running that just showed me just how difficult that sport can be, and how much of a not only physical but mental challenge it can be, and how much growth as an individual running can give a person. But he didn't coach me until he coaches me now. But it was actually my junior and senior year roommate Pippa, who ran for Georgetown. And I remember her saying to me one day, you run a lot for someone who doesn't really race. Why don't we see if we can train you to run a mile? And I was like, well, I would love that, but where am I going to run a mile? And she goes, I have the contacts of all of these cross country and track coaches from the entire DMV, like DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I bet I could get you into a race unattached. And I was like, that's insane. That's literally wild. And she was like, let's just try. And so she starts emailing around, and finally one coach responded and said, if she wants to pay $50, she can race in our meet. And Pippa was
No
like,
way.
great. So Pippa trained me my senior spring because I was done with field hockey at that point. She trained me, she started coaching me, and I raced exactly one college track meet. One. um, and yeah, she was like my first real coach who believed in me and also helped me set measurable goals. And that kind of kickstarted me into really taking it seriously and being like, this could be more of a hobby. It could be like a little like part of my identity, which was really cool.
How'd you feel after you ran that mile? Like just among all those D1, I'm assuming it was D1 athletes. Like what? Yeah.
It
Okay. How
was
did you feel after that race? And what'd you place? I'm interested.
so well, that was my answer. Is I was actually kind of upset because I came in second, and I think I could have won, um, but I was really proud. I was really proud because it's hard to do something like that completely on your own. And granted, I wasn't
Mm,
alone because I had Pippa supporting me. I had so many people supporting me. But to go out every single week, twice a week, and run as hard as I could on a track alone
mm.
was something I was proud of. So, yeah, I just remember feeling excited and proud, um, and feeling like I had done something pretty special for myself, to prove something to myself, especially because like my field hockey career in college was not, I was never the star of the show, which is fine, but my role on my field hockey team was very much, I was a leader in the locker room but not a leader on the field. I set examples for hard work and work ethic, but I was not a star player. which is not a complaint. There was a goalkeeper that was better than me, and she deserved to be on the field. And so it took a lot, but I ended up having to accept, okay, my role here is not going to be what I thought it was going to be. And so to be able to come off of 4 years of having a kind of behind the scenes role and be able to go do something for myself like that was athletically was really cool. So it felt like a full circle thing.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. We often hear about the red flags that we should avoid, but what if we started to focus more on looking for the green flags in our friends and in our partners? Identifying the green flags means that you're focusing on the positive traits and creating a healthy foundation, which sometimes is something that I personally really need to work on. I found therapy to be so helpful when it comes to understanding why I do the things that I do. It's helped me to set boundaries, understand coping skills, regulate my emotions, and so much more. BetterHelp is fully online therapy, making it really affordable and really convenient. They have a diverse network of over 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties, and BetterHelp serves over 5 million people worldwide. BetterHelp makes it easy to switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/8020 to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/8020.
Lowe's knows that free is just better. That's why MyLowe's Rewards is free to join. As a member, you earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases, get exclusive free gifts, and earn free shipping at Silver Key status, all on top of weekly member-only deals. Don't wait. Join MyLowe's Rewards for free today and start saving more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Running now translates into your nursing career. I want to talk a little bit about how the two are so deeply intertwined. What is that like for you, and why is running important to you as a nurse?
You know, I could talk for hours about this, but running is an identity for me, just like nursing is, just like being a sister, um, or a fiance or whatever it is. And I think, we talked earlier about monkey see, monkey do, setting the example. My mom, she's not a runner, but my mom was the mother of 8 children. She never took time for herself ever, except for one little 30-minute to an hour portion every morning. I remember I would come downstairs and I would hear, we had this creaky bike in the basement, and I would hear like creak, 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 because my mom was on the bike in the basement. It was her time every day that she would go downstairs and she would do one thing for herself. Because when I tell you, this woman sometimes couldn't even go to the bathroom in peace without kids banging on the door, needing something from every single direction. There's 8 of us. I mean, it was packed. She, that example of, you spend all day long being selfless for your children is similar to being a nurse. You spend all day long being selfless. Me, I am not the priority when I'm in the hospital. My patients are the priority. And, there are days that feel like a total loss. You come home, you might have had a death. You might have had somebody desat on you. You might have just been running your tail off all day. You might have had someone be super disrespectful. You do have days where you come home and you feel like, what did I even accomplish today? And so for me, I run before my shifts, never after, because one, I know I won't have the physical energy. A lot of the times, not the mental energy. But when I can get a run done before a shift, it's like my win for the day. If nothing else good happens today, I did this, and I did it for me, and I did it for my health and my future. And that has, in a sense, honestly, running has saved me as a nurse, I think. I'm almost 2 years into this. The burnout rates, if you look at them, people start to burn out right around the spot where I'm in. And the ER is not for the faint of heart. It's one of the more crazy, if not the craziest specialty that you can go into. And I think running is just honestly, the utmost form of self love for me. It's something that gives me an identity outside of being a nurse, and it grounds me and it brings me back every single time. I've cried on runs. You know, we had my worst day as a nurse was when we lost a child. It was a year ago. And it still comes back sometimes. I will be running and like images of that day will come into my head, and it always is like a form of release. It just helps me process things in a way that I never realized. I think every nurse should run. I know it'll never happen, but I really do. Like I think it's the best way to decompress.
Do you see a difference in the healthcare workers that you know work out and spend time in their health and wellness versus the ones who don't?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Um Again, like nursing is a very selfless career in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of nurses, everyone has their coping mechanisms. Um, I think nurses, because we're so selfless a lot of times, sometimes it's almost like a mental block, and they just tend to not take care of themselves. But I do see an even split, and it doesn't have to be perfect either. Like, you know, I'm lucky, like I always want to like emphasize, like I'm, you know, 24, no kids.
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
that many responsibilities outside of work. You know, I have a dog, but that's not the same as having 3 kids that you have to get to soccer practice and whatever. Working out like I do is not feasible for every nurse. But I do think that some form of physical exercise in a consistent manner is really important for every nurse. And I would like to see everyone be able to implement it, because I do see a difference. I see a difference in the women that I coach, from nursing students to bedside nurses. One of my one-on-one athletes that I'm coaching, she's still in nursing school, but she told me last week that she used to leave her exams and just want to sleep and not want to do anything. And she was like, I find myself now leaving exams and I want to go for my run. Like I want to decompress.
That's such a win.
And it was such a win. It made me so happy, because that's how I was in nursing school. I think
Yeah.
people running can have, like, a lot of people, when you don't do it or you're not exposed to it in the right way, running can have such a negative connotation. But it literally, there's a reason that a runner's high is a thing. Like it is like a drug. Like it's like nature's antidepressant. You go out and you get those happy hormones. You get a huge serotonin boost and a huge dopamine boost, because you are literally running on endorphins. And it just, it's so helpful. I think even just tiring yourself out a little bit, it helps with anxiety. Like it calms you down. So yeah, I see a huge difference between nurses who do and nurses who don't.
Okay, so for someone who maybe they don't even have to be a nurse, but for someone who's maybe in school or their job burns them out, because I know that people listening to this show, they might not be nurses, but maybe they give and give and give in some area or aspect of their life. If they wanted to start running, where is a good
Mhm.
place for them to start? If they've always told themselves that they've never been a runner, I get DMs all the time, like, how do I start running? And quite frankly, like, I'm kind of just like, you just put one foot in front of the other. Like you just have to start. And like I feel like the first mile is always the hardest. But what do you think from your point of view?
It sounds like kind of just what you said. You put one foot in front of the other. I think one of the biggest things you see when people want to start running is they go out and they go super hard right from the get-go. You know, it's tough. And I think, you know, social media is a complete, it just, social media is so fake. Like
So
you
fake.
see these perfect images of like stick thin women going out and just running, blah blah, and those people do exist. That's, but that, what you're seeing there is like a snippet of, first of all, a journey that took probably years and years and years to get to this point, and two, just like you're just seeing a snippet. If you wanted to start running, my advice would be there's something called zone 2 training, which I call it your forever pace. It is a speed at which you feel like you could run forever. If you don't feel like you're able to have a conversation with a friend while you're running, chances are you're running too quickly. Um, I think run walk intervals are a great way to start. Literally week 1 for someone that's never run before. If I was coaching that person, I'd be having them do, okay, 2 minutes jogging, 2 minutes walking, 2 minutes jogging, 2 minutes walking, just alternate. Your goal is time on feet, right? It's just the amount of time that your body is spending where your heart rate is beating in a certain zone, because your heart is a muscle. Just like any other muscle in your body, you need to train it. But if you've never deadlifted before, you're not going to go pick up 500 pounds and deadlift 500 pounds. Just like if you've never run before, you're not going to go out and run at a 5-minute pace. It's just not going to happen. So what's important is to spend a certain amount of time, take 30 minutes and just do intervals of 2 minutes walking, 2 minutes jogging, 2 minutes walking, 2 minutes jogging, back and forth and back and forth. And then every week, even every day, because at the beginning, you will progress quickly. If you have a running background, you'll progress really quickly. If you say you took, 6 months off, a year off, or you played sports when you were in high school and now you're 23 and you want to get back into it. The key is to not overdo it, because easy running is extremely, extremely hard to underdo, but very easy to overdo. And then, once you have like a little bit of a base, then you start looking at, okay, we're going to do some speed work, and you figure out what feels easy and what feels hard. But it is like one foot in front of the other. And every week you try to progress a little bit more, and just not be too hard on yourself.
I love it. So good. You told me one time, I think we were sitting in Pussers, and I was like, what running shoes should I get? And you're like, dude, get Hoka's. And I was like, what's a Hoka? And, and then you said something that stuck with me ever since. And you said, the best gift that anyone can ever give themselves is to be able to go for a 30-minute run. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember saying that, but you told me that. And I always remember that. And I've quoted it on the podcast multiple times just because it's so true. And I
It
mean,
is.
today I went and I did a 5K on the treadmill before I even started my workout. And I was like, this is kind of my warm up. I ran at like an 11-minute pace just because I was talking the whole time to the person next to me. And it was
Exactly. Who
just,
cares?
yeah, literally who cares? And it's just getting it done and doing it, and feeling good after. And I think it's almost, I think for me, thinking back to that girl who was like, oh, I just wish that I could start running. I just want to like give her a high five and be like, well, you did. And like, here you are now. And maybe your fastest pace is only like a 9-minute mile, but who cares? I'm like, the only person that I'm really racing is myself. And so I just always remember that you told me that. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah,
That's such a great tidbit. Cause I don't
I
think
agree.
most people probably couldn't go run a mile, and how beautiful of a gift to give yourself to be able to go out and do that.
And you can do it anywhere. That's the thing, is like, if you can go for a 30-minute run, you can do that literally pretty much anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And I just think that's like a great goal for anyone who's like a beginner, is to just get yourself to being able to do a 30-minute jog, 30-minute run, whatever it is. And, you're so right. Like, in terms of progress is so, I think we're so hard on ourselves, right? Like, we have very short-term memories. Like, I'll look back and be like, why am I not so much faster at this workout than I was like 1 month ago? I had that thought this morning as I was doing I had 400s on the track today. And then I paused myself and thought back to a moment I remember my junior year of college, this was like a year after I started running, kind of. And I remember I did 400 repeats on the treadmill. It was the middle of winter. I had driven back from Annapolis actually that day. I had visited Alex and then I drove back. And I think I did like 6 of them. And I just remember thinking, same thing. Like, I wish I could give that girl a high five, because right now, the 400s I'm doing today, like 4 years later, you have to have a longer, like just a bigger lens, I think, when you're looking at these things. Like, progress, first of all, it's not linear. It's like super up and down all the time. And it's so easy to be hard on yourself week to week, month to month, but it's really important to look at kind of the whole journey. Like you started back way back there, and now that's like easy for you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just, I think that's important too, to have like a broad perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a little bit earlier we talked about how running is so trendy. We've got run clubs. I feel like everybody's running a marathon. Why do you think this
Yeah,
is? Like, what's your theory on this, Megan? Why is running so trendy?
that's a great question.
Do you think it's just like hyped up? And I'm not going to say it's overhyped because I believe the hype. I felt the hype.
I know. I mean, it's a source of community too. Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it's like it's running, but it's also like, it's like a social club. I think honestly, part of me wants to say that people are just kind of getting fed up with like the social media culture and just like everyone being on a screen all the time.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be looking at your phone at a run club. Like
Yeah.
you're running and talking and you know, I know some that'll meet for coffee after or they'll meet for a beer after or meet for breakfast. I think it's just this, I don't know what caused it to take off. I think it's just it's you know, it's a largely like a lot of the younger 20 something community. I think people just crave connection with other people, and I think it's just running is just this, you know, kind of easy thing there. It doesn't take much logistically to plan a run club. It's just like, hey, let's just meet and go, you
Yeah.
know. And I also think it's a, you know, it can be a form of, it gives people the ability to compete. I actually would like to see, this is something that Alex and I talk about all the time. Like, I'd like to see, like, you know, track nights. Like, let's go out and like have like
Yes.
a mile. Like, let's race a mile, you know? Like,
Yeah.
if we had like local track clubs, um, like a local basketball league or a local, you know, softball league for adults, like, I think it'd be so
Okay,
fun if
I
people
bet
just had like,
if you guys did that down where you are, you would have so many takers because there's just so many athletes down there.
I think it'd be so fun, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's just
Yeah,
race.
absolutely.
Everyone, and you know, you could have stakes with it too. Like, everyone throw in 20 bucks
Oh yeah.
and first place, you get this much. Second place, this much. Third place,
That's
this much. Have
motivating.
women and men categories. Yeah, like it'd
Oh
be
yeah.
fun. It's like horse racing for humans. Like it would be
Yeah.
just like so fun.
Be so
Um,
fun. Do you like men's,
that's where,
women's, and then like a joke one where people are like running in high heels or something ridiculous like that?
yeah, literally
Yeah.
something so funny.
Like make it fun.
I love to see that happen because I think, and this is no hate to the marathon, but like to be a legit runner, you do not have to be training for a marathon.
Yeah.
I just posted about this today because
I was actually going to ask you about that.
yeah,
What's up with the marathon? And honestly, I it's a bucket list item, but it kind of sounds miserable.
I think people do it because it's viewed as, so like you know, the everyday runner, I think the marathon is viewed as like, this is the epitome. Like if I can do this, I can, that's it. But I think the people who think that they've probably never raced an all out mile or an all out 5K because like, you know, and I'm not even the best person to ask, but now that a lot of my world is track and field athletes, like racing an all out mile is just as hard or harder than racing the marathon. Like they're different types of fitness. The 800, like it's like all these things, which is why I think having like some sort of like mile night or 2 mile night would be so awesome. Um,
Like
but
open a door that people
yeah,
aren't used to seeing cuz all over
yeah,
Instagram, and we talked a lot about social media throughout the episode of how it's mostly people who are, mile 1, mile 2, mile 3, and
yeah,
they're posting
yeah,
their runs, which I do, no hate. Um, but you're not seeing the full run. Like you didn't see when I stopped and like took a sip of my water. Like same thing with the marathon people. Like, they're running these
yeah,
marathons, but is it all fun and games? All 26 miles? I highly doubt it.
yeah, no, definitely not. And just like you said, like, you know, I'm not filming while I'm doing my 400s because I'm like spitting on the floor after I finish them. Like it's hard. It is
Yeah.
hard. Like I
Yeah.
think um they marathon is awesome. Like it's the half marathon is awesome, but there's also something to be said about training for those shorter distances. first of all, you can race them more often, which is cool. You can run a 5K as hard as you possibly can, and you can race it again 2 weeks later.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate Pina Colada and Thai iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Este episodio es presentado por Honda. Descubra la nueva Honda Passport Trail Sport Todoterreno. La Passport más todoterreno que Honda haya imaginado jamás. Esta Passport cuenta con mayor altura al suelo, barras de techo en todas sus versiones y neumáticas especialmente diseñados para cualquier terreno. Además, disfruta todos tus viajes con el control de clima de 3 zonas, techo panorámico y opciones como asientos delanteros con calefacción y ventilación. Conoce más en honda.com/Passport.
And it's a different type of working out. Like you learn, I've learned things about myself in a 20-mile long run. I have also learned very much about myself doing 400s or 200s on the track. Running, there's like neither one is like better than the other. So I would love to see sort of like those shorter distances become more commonplace, especially with like the younger running community. I think it'd be so awesome.
Okay, so I would love to know what you're currently working on. Like, what is your, maybe not give us your full training plan, but like, do you have any goals? Do you have any races coming up? Do you have anything that you're really looking forward to?
I do. I'm currently like 5K training. I have been stuck at the same 5K PR for like a couple months now. I just did a time trial with Alex on the track last weekend, and I was super close to my goal, but just off. And we found a couple weaknesses based on how I raced that we're working on for the next couple weeks, and then I'm going to try again. I think eventually, I just spent all this time talking about how like not everyone needs to train for the marathon. I think eventually a marathon block is in my future. But not
And
yet. I'm not ready for it
as it
yet.
should be, because I think that that's such a cool goal. I mean, all of them are cool goals. And I know that we just kind of, we knocked the marathon a little bit, but no hate to all the marathon people, because that's a huge race. That's a huge race.
No, it is. It is.
Yeah.
So difficult. So I think once I hit this goal of mine that I've had for the 5K, then I'll maybe consider transitioning into like a full marathon block. Because I'd love to run the Philly Marathon. Bring me back home. They would do it Thanksgiving weekend too, or right around then. So we'll see. But right now we're doing 5K stuff, and then so that's what I'm doing with running, and then I'm coaching. So there's that, because that's been a lot of fun. We're still working on Rogo.
Okay, tell me briefly about Rogo, and then briefly about your coaching, because if people loved all the stuff that you said in today's episode, then they need to be coached by you, because you are a fantastic running coach and fantastic friend. So beyond just coaching, you get access to Maynes. Tell me about Rogo and tell me about your coaching.
Okay, so Rogo is a website that I have been lucky enough to be part of this team. It's made up of Alex, who's my fiance, and then a couple other guys who ran track and field with him at Navy. And it started honestly as like a pipe dream. They graduated. We were talking about, Alex and his brother, Matt, were talking about it would be so cool if we could train people with running. And there's not really a website that we love for us to be able to do that sort of thing, from home, to be able to reach people. And we're now almost 2 years into it. And it's a fully functioning website, and it makes me so proud. I had nothing to do with building the website. That was all Miguel and Ben and Alex. And essentially it's a marketplace where you go on and you can pretty much find a coach for not just running, any sport, anywhere. you can sell whatever you want on there, which I love because you can do one-on-one coaching. You could do just group training plans. You can do just like PDF training plans. You could put a run club on there, or you could put like a race on there and be like, hey, we're going to go out here and race on Tuesday night. Sign up right here. And then it has this awesome training calendar, which I use for my training and I use for all of my athletes. It's a great way to connect coaches with athletes. And I'm so proud of the guys because they turned nothing into something. And it's now something that like I'm using, which is so cool. Rogo.club is the website.
So
And it's
cool.
still, we're building every day, still working on it all the time. I think one day the goal is for it to be an app. But the website works beautifully. And it's genuinely like I've coached multiple sports from field hockey to running to even like swimming when I was in high school and I was still on the swim team. You could use it for anything. And it's a really easy way for, if you're a coach to be able to keep track of all your athletes in one place. And you can literally have all your stuff in one place too, which is awesome. Because I know some coaches who are using like email and Venmo for payments and then like Google Sheets for other stuff. And like all of that stuff can go into the website in one way or another. So it's helped me to be organized and like expand kind of, which has been awesome. And yeah, that's where I coach all my athletes. I do one-on-one coaching. So that's like, kind of the top tier. And I only have like a certain amount of spots for one-on-one athletes just because I put so many hours a week into each person that I'm coaching one-on-one. But I also do like a group strength program. It's made for runners. I also think all nurses should be strong because you do a lot of turning and pushing and pulling, and I see nurses get hurt all the time at work. I think so. I do like a group strength program, and then I just do like individual training plans where like I take your schedule, take your goal race and your training data that you've got and write a training plan that's like unique to you. It's pretty simple, but I pretty much just utilize like what I've learned and then what kind of wisdom everyone who's coached me has given me. It's cool because I feel like I'm in a spot now where I can help people who want to start running and who want to set goals for themselves. And it's so awesome. I look forward to it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so if someone wants to be coached by you, where can they find you?
Instagram, MegRunnerNurse, and then I send them to Rogo and typically set up a consultation call. It depends what they want, but on Instagram is where you can reach me. And then I usually help people figure out what kind of goals or what kind of level of training I think would make sense for them. Because I think, especially for nurses, like we don't make a ton of money. So, my goal is not to like charge the heck out of people. And I really try to figure out, okay, this is like where you're at budget wise, like let's try to make something work. And so it usually is a conversation that turns into a phone call or a FaceTime, and then we set a goal. And then we go from there. So Instagram typically.
IG, that's where it's at. You also post tons of tips and tricks and Instagram stories, and you're just such a light. Anytime I open my phone, you usually pop up first, and I'm like, Megan posted, boom. Okay, so I was gonna start with these questions, but we got into our convo and we just jumped in. So I figured that we would end with these questions because there's still questions that I want to ask you. These are hot seat questions, like one max 2-word answers. And they're quick. So don't think too much about what you're about to say.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm not good at this. I'm a yapper. Okay, go ahead.
You're gonna do great, Megan. Don't think too hard about it. Okay. You're on a run, headphones or no headphones?
Headphones.
What is the last book you read and would you recommend it?
The Nightingale. Yes, I would recommend it.
Okay. What song is on repeat right now?
S&M by Rihanna. Always.
Go to coffee order.
Whatever the largest size is, cold brew,
Love.
skim milk, and stevia.
Love. North or south?
North.
No context. Just north. Okay. I figured that you'd pick north.
That's
all right.
a safe historical answer, I think, and like just in general, just the north.
Yeah, just the north. No context. All right. Do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Extrovert.
Yeah, for sure. We're making breakfast. What is your preferred toast temperature?
Incinerated. Like dark. Like I do not like floppy toast. It needs to
Didn't
be
didn't you leave
almost.
didn't you leave bread in the toaster for like a couple days? Was that you?
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
that was. That's too much. That's probably the type of toast that will give you cancer. But
That's fire department
maybe that's where
toast.
my tumor came from. I don't know. Maybe it is the level of toasting, but I don't like I'm like the one that takes a marshmallow at a campfire and lights it on fire and then eats it. So like that's how I like my toast almost.
Okay, so we're burning the toast big time. All right, top 3
Yeah.
recently used emojis. I don't know if your phone's nearby, but top 3 recently used emojis. And they might require an explanation.
I'm so scared. They do or they don't.
Maybe, I don't know. If they're weird, then yeah, I
Okay.
want the explanation.
It's the 2 explanations.
Okay.
I use those all the time. Like you'll never catch me using the regular one. The bomb
That's kind of on brand.
and then the
Oh yeah.
but if you can see it, like it's pretty there you go. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what this lady is. Like I think this is my memoji, but I was just like a weirdo and like made it super weird looking. And then there's like the band-aid and then there's like a germ and a blood and the needle and then a rock.
Very
I don't
very
know.
healthcare. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very healthcare core. I'm not like a think about the emojis. Like I just like
Just press.
when I send messages a lot. Just press.
Let's see, what were the
Yeah.
recent ones that I sent to you? Oh, my recent ones, my top 3 in case you're wondering, is the white heart, that's on brand, the chicken emoji, and the 3 pink hearts. That's very on brand.
I feel like that makes sense. Yeah. You like your
Yeah.
You like your chicken.
like
I
my
don't know. I
chicken.
feel like that has multiple. Is that an is
Yeah,
that
this
an
is in
elf?
our group chat. Lexi sent it.
Oh my gosh, you don't look.
I so look like the elf on the shelf in that photo, don't I?
No, you don't. Your hair. I can tell it's curly. No, you don't.
Uh,
It looks like she just like pointed the camera at you and was like, "Smile," and you didn't like have a second.
That's exactly how it went down. Anyway, all right, last cue of the rapid fire. This one you can take a little bit more time to think about. But the average age
Okay.
of this podcast listener is about 22. If you could go back and tell your 22-year-old self one piece of advice, what would you tell her?
If you can get it done in 5 minutes, do it. And if you're not going to be concerned about it in 5 months, don't worry about it right now.
I love it.
That's it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Megan, thank you so much for coming on the pod. You are just amazing.
Dude,
Such
thank
a
you.
light in my life. And I just love you so much. This is your first appearance, but it most definitely will not be your last because we didn't even get into like half the things that I wanted to talk about. So we got a lot, a lot of stuff to share.
I can't wait to see you. It's so soon.
I know. So soon. We've got,
Yeah, we really are.
when is that? June? Is
Under
that what
6
we're doing?
months. Yeah.
June. So
Mhm.
soon. Okay, if people want to find you, Instagram, TikTok, any of that, shout out your socials.
So Instagram is MegRunnerNurse. TikTok is also MegRunnerNurse, but I deleted the app.
Me
So I
too.
actually currently don't have access to my TikTok,
Yeah.
which is sad. But if they put it back on the App Store, then there's that. And then for coaching, you can reach out to me via Instagram or you can go to rogo.club and you can find me on there. However, reach out to me on Instagram first because typically I make the training plans and then put them on Rogo.
Thanks, Megan. Love you.
Thank you. I love you more.
Love you most.